All right. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chopping It Up with P. Scott. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today is Friday, October 27th. Glad to have you back with us. I'm sorry if that thing delayed. It said I was live for like 10 seconds, and your boy wasn't prepared for that. We are going live on Facebook Live, as we've been doing the last couple weeks, and I haven't done a whole lot of work with the YouTube channel in forever, so I figured, why not? We'll get on there as well. Topics of discussion. NBA fans have already ruined Wembenyama's career. Now, this was my notations and everything was before I knew he had a double-double tonight, but still, I put these notes in this morning. I still stand by it. Slim Vic you've already set him up for failure. NFL trade rumors. Giannis once again gets a pass. I'm still going to poo-poo on Josh Allen. I've had a little bit of a change of heart on the brotherly shove. And Kyle Shanahan is about to start costing a lot of people a lot of money at the quarterback position if he's not careful, and we'll go into more detail with that. If you have anything you want to drop into the chat, please do. I'll be opening up that in just a second. Also, shout out to the Mac Truck Podcast. We are trying to coordinate where I can be on her show, Mackenzie Brooks' new podcast. It's available on Spotify. Again, that's the Mac Truck Podcast with 2 E's. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shamelessly do the at all followers because that is apparently the new cool thing to do. Nobody likes it, but apparently I get one day or I get one time to do it per day. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, if you guys want to be cool and do that too, that'd be super awesome because the audio version is going to be on Spotify later tonight, early tomorrow, so you guys can stream it before you're watching college football or whatever it might have you. So now we can actually get to the points at hand. So I was watching the not the Denver Nuggets, the San Antonio Spurs and Dallas Mavericks play opening night. And right from the get-go, right after the game, there's people already comparing his stat line, Victor Wembanyama, to Tim Duncan and David Robinson. And this is how dumb we are as sports fans. And this is how dumb the social media landscape has made us personally, is that everybody thinks that they are Skip Bayless. Everybody thinks that they are Stephen A. Smith and just has to have the hottest take, have to be the first one to get out there and have to go with, well, did you win? And I'm just tired of the lazy takes. So he had 15 points apparently in his rookie debut. So did Tim Duncan. They both shot the same percentage from the field. And I think they both had the same amount of rebounds or steals. There was another stat that was the exact same. And the first thing I saw from one of the social media platforms I'm on is, well, did he win? Really? We're already doing that? Tim Duncan got a W in his first NBA game. And Victor Wembanyama gets an L, and we're already going, well, did he win? We got to stop doing this as a society, man. Like sports, we think that we're these smart people. And if we are, we need to act like it because this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And we're already going game one. Did he win? We do. We got to stop it. But to get back on track of how we've already set Victor up for failure. One, the loss on opening day, you're already doing that, has already set the precedence of you're already doing the parallels to other greats that have played for San Antonio. But besides that, we put him specifically in this box that he has to play the way that we've seen him play through YouTube clips is shooting the ball from three, crossing people over, getting put back dunks with ease. And we're holding him to that standard of he has to play that way because when we were in high school, and I know this sounds like I'm being an old head, but 20 years ago, yeah, you're tall. Of course you play basketball. Like that's just where our minds went. And it wasn't just, yeah, you played basketball. You played a certain way. You were on the block. You were back to the basket. You played a certain way. But because the game has evolved so much in 20, 25 years or so, we've come to the place where if he doesn't play basketball the way that he's playing right now and continues to, it's just going to dumb it down to the narrative of, well, yeah, you're tall. Of course you'd be good at basketball. So the very first thing he does, like his first points in the NBA are him shooting a three. And San Antonio went bonkers, right? The crowd went absolutely nuts. First he blocks Kyrie. Then he goes down, his first points are a three. He now at this point has to play this way. For us as like a sports community to be like, oh yeah, he might be as good as what we think he's going to be. Because if he's just banging in the paint, it's just going to be, yeah, you're tall. Of course you're supposed to do that. You're just basically, European Sean Bradley. And we don't want to do that to the guy, right? The other thing that's bothersome to me is he's got to be great right from the get-go or the slander is going to start. And what I mean by that is, well, I'm getting a little bit off topic. Oh, sorry. I got sidetracked. Chris Fisher says, you ain't wrong. They set him up that if the kid doesn't win 2 rings in 5 years, he's a bust. Kid's got Space Jam arms. He does have Space Jam arms. You're right. He is a true to life monster. It's pretty bananas. Like, I've never seen anything. Like, we've seen tall dudes, but there have been people taller than him in the NBA. We've seen the George Mirasans, Sean Bradley, who I've already mentioned. We've seen guys who have been taller than him, but not guys who are as skilled as him. And the other thing and to get back on the original point, because I did get sidetracked for a moment, and that was my fault, is that we're putting him in this box of he's got to be great offensively immediately as well, which isn't fair. And I don't like using that term because that seems like, of course, it's not fair. But we're saying that he's got to be great offensively right from the get-go, which may not happen. I don't see it happening. He has to kind of grow into his body. Chet Holmgren is getting a lot of the same type of stuff. But we saw him when he got drafted last year and saw what he looks like this year. And even Chet, you can tell he grew into his body. Like, he was 18, 19 when he came out. These kids need a little bit of time to kind of grow into their body. And Victor's going to be a similar case study where he is pretty slim right now. He's still got more girth on him than Kevin Durant, let's say. It's not by much, but he's got a little bit more girth to him, especially when KD came into the league. But right from the get-go, the analysis from all of these sports doctors, and because everybody on the internet's always right. They don't want to admit when they're wrong, or when the narrative changes, they just deflect to something else. And that's what it's going to be with Victor. Is that, well, what's going to happen when he plays against Jokic? I don't know. There's guys in the league who've been playing for the last 5 to 10 years who are bigger than him and can't handle him either. But once San Antonio does play Denver and he doesn't have a good game, which he probably won't because of just the sheer size of a Jokic along with his skill. But if it goes more into the post, it's going to be, see, I told you he couldn't bang on anybody. The thing with him defensively is we're going to have to create a new stat for Victor Wembanyama. Like, we have these new analytics of how you alter a shot. With Victor, I've seen people just going, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to have to create a new analytic stat for Victor Wembanyama alone that just says, nope, not going to do it, and have that be a new defensive metric quite literally just for him. Chris says he did match Tim Duncan's numbers literally number for number, so he's doing great so far. I think for the way that we are interpreting basketball right now is like it has to be overwhelming, and you have to do it in an overwhelming fashion. So we got into foul trouble, and it did once more. It comes down to people on the internet have to be first to a take. And it's like, well, once he gets adjusted to U.S. basketball and he just needs to learn how to stay out of foul trouble. Cool. Way to enlighten all of us with he just needs to stay out of foul trouble when he has 5 fouls and there's still 6 minutes left. Like, you're not telling anybody anything. It's a useless anecdotal thing that you're trying to make yourself sound smarter than you actually are. The biggest things, one, again, with Victor, he needs to grow into his body a little bit more. He's going to get a little bit more girth, but you don't want him to get too big, right? Like, I don't know if that frame, because like Jokic is already big. He's what, 6'11", 7 foot, and he's a big dude. Another half a foot on top of that, I don't know. I don't know how that body structure would work, because it's not so much the science for me. It's just the history of what we've seen of people of this size generally seem to get hurt. So if you do put on the pounds, because he's going to need to, and he's also going to do it. It's not just that he needs to, it's physically, that's what's going to happen to his body. But you think with too much, can that frame handle it? And again, I'm not trying to be a doctor and basically poo-poo on the people that I just kind of criticized, but we do wonder, because the data supports it. What we've seen from this league supports the Yao Mings of the world, the Sean Bradleys, the George Marissons. The Kristaps Porzingis was supposed to be, and he's been injury riddled as well. And those are the two closest kind of body comps that I have, off the top of my head at least, of what we consider the unicorn, the guy who's over 7 feet, who can shoot threes, who can handle. The thing for me when it comes to Victor, offensively at least, because again, we kind of got sidetracked, is I don't want his game exclusively to be just from the three-point line, because that takes away his biggest skill, which is his size. I think they still need to use him in other ways and be creative and not just have him pull threes all the time, but also to get back on point real quick of the defensive side of when the criticism is, well, what's going to happen when he does deal with a more traditional center? One, the NBA doesn't really do that anymore. So on those slim matchups, on the rare occasions where he's going to have to go against a more traditional center, the only way that they're going to get a shot off is to get that man 100% under the basket, which once again doesn't do you any good as an offensive player, because you're going to need room to at least get the shot up. But that man's wingspan is infinity billion inches long. Good luck with it, dog. I don't know how they're going to do it. This just feels like we're just nitpicking to try to do the most that we can to discredit somebody, because it's so much easier to tear somebody down than to build them up, or to be hyperbolic and say he's going to be the greatest ever or the worst ever based on a sample size of quite literally a 48-minute game and only playing about 27 of them. Before we move on, call the new stat, NH not happening. I like that. We'll do the NH stat because we got box plus minus and all this other stuff. The Victor Wembanyama not taking the shot is the NH not happening. I like that. Get that man meat on his bone. And what's weird, my uncle, he used to own a restaurant down in San Antonio, and I'm going to check to see if he still does. And if he does, I'm going to holler at him to go ahead and put some of that brisket on Mr. Wembanyama so we can go and beef him up a little bit. Let's see. Mr. Fisher says, not to mention that they have Zach Collins in their starting lineup too. And as a Blazers fan, I know that man is injury ridden as well. Well, the other thing too is like, one, that starting lineup is like ridiculously tall. I think every single person is 6'4", 6'5", or taller, which is bonkers. And I think at some point in time, Pop is probably going to switch up that lineup where Collins isn't starting, because I don't think you want those two guys playing together as much. One, for foul trouble issues, and two, just, I don't know, Zach Collins is, there's certain people that I look at, and this is going to sound very critical and it's going to sound very shallow, but one, your name, and two, there's certain things about you, like Mac Jones. When he got drafted, the way he walked, I'm like, that guy can't play. It's not good. Zach Wilson, you're too pretty. And there's just certain names like Tyson Bagent. Nice story. You got to win your first start for Chicago. That name does not translate into greatness. There's just certain things about people who I just go, yeah, it's not going to work. And Zach Collins has one of those faces where I'm just like, you're good. You're not that good, dog. So I know he's in the starting lineup for now, but I think at some point in time, they're going to kind of rotate that where Zach Collins doesn't get as many minutes, or at least he's not starting, because at some point in time, you have to kind of stagger your bigs, like when Victor gets in trouble, because foul trouble is going to happen in the NBA. You hope it doesn't happen every game, but it's going to happen. But anyway, NFL trade rumors are obviously all the buzz right now. And we've seen the thing that irritates me the most about this particular subject matter is everybody's always up for sale and everybody is a buyer. So Derrick Henry is one of those names who's been spit around a lot. Now, I'm only going to touch on a few of these characters because we've seen this story too many times for me to believe that there's going to be 500,000 trades. Because with the NBA, once the trade deadline hits, that 48-hour window and once it starts to count down even more, it gets ratcheted up and you see people dealt every 18 minutes. The NFL doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of buzz, but not a lot of people actually get moved. But the big time people that we hear or that we're hearing about right now is one, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins is another guy who is circulating in the rumor mill, because Tennessee is just trying to just offset that entire roster, it seems like. And they should have done it last year, but the fact is that they're still realizing they need to do it and blow it up. And you got to start from the ground up sometimes. So Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, there's another few guys. It was Kevin Byard until he actually got traded from Tennessee to Philly, which again, another Titans person who is on the chopping block. But for me, Derrick Henry is the guy who I think is the most likely to get dealt. And or even Dalvin Cook, because he's unhappy with his role with the Jets. If Breece Hall can stay, and that's the only reason why I don't think that Dalvin Cook might get dealt, is because I think what they're worried about is if Breece Hall gets another injury, that they don't have a guy like Dalvin Cook to back him up if they do move him. So he can be upset all he wants to, but I don't think that anything's going to come to fruition with the Dalvin Cook stuff. But Derrick Henry for me makes the most sense. But he's been rumored to go to like 40 different teams, mostly Buffalo and Baltimore. My buddy is a huge Vikings fan. He says, well, they've won 3 of the last 4. Justin Jefferson is coming back in a couple of weeks, which I don't know if he will, because when you get that hammy injury, just because they put him on IR means he can't play for 4 weeks, but it doesn't mean they have to play him once he's back. So if they rush him back too soon, pops it again, it is what it is. But for me, it doesn't make any sense to go get Derrick Henry if you're Minnesota, just because you're too far away. You can play better, you can look better. But Kirk Cousins is on the final year of his contract. You don't have any backup plan if you don't re-sign him. It doesn't make any sense to go get Derrick Henry. From my perspective, again, it's my buddy talking to me about it. I don't see it happening. To me, Baltimore makes the most sense because their backs get injured all the time. And the run-pass option, the play action, using Lamar in that construct as well is what makes them so dynamic. And if you get a guy like Derrick Henry, who overall has been incredibly durable, you put him and Dobbins, I think Dobbins is hurt, but you put him with Lamar Jackson, and now what you thought this Ravens offense was supposed to look like is going to look a lot more like what we thought it was supposed to look like. We've already seen it kind of come to fruition, at least with play calling. The yards aren't necessarily there with Lamar right now, but they're winning games, and they're winning games the way that they've always done it. But if you put him there, to me, that one makes the most sense. Buffalo doesn't make any sense to me. 1, because that offensive line is booty juice. And 2, I don't trust them to actually use him anyways. The one time that Buffalo should do something, or that they shouldn't do something, I hope they don't. Because if they're doing it just to make a splash play, it's going to bite them in the ass, and I'm not going to be happy about it. The place that I believe, to me, for the dark horse, that is a destination spot for Derrick Henry, I actually believe is San Francisco. So I said that earlier, and it got some mixed emotions. Sorry. When you speak for 20 minutes straight, you can get a little parched. So I got my milk stout beer over here, holding it down for me. And yeah, I thought San Francisco makes perfect sense because they have the cap money to take him on this year because they actually have like almost $30 million in cap space, I believe. And his salary is like 10 or 12. And if you don't, and the Brock Purdy thing I know is going to come up, and that's actually part of the segue of what I was mentioning about Shanahan and him costing people money soon. We'll get to that a little bit later, is if you were to match McCaffrey and Derrick Henry together on the same roster, that's stupid. Because you got one guy who's always durable. Again, he had 1 foot injury, I believe. But Derrick Henry has had so many carries from high school, at Alabama, and in the pros. And to be as durable as he has, that's the most impressive thing about him. And probably the most impressive stat of all time. If you just put all of his numbers, all of his carries, and total them up from like middle school, it's got to blow every other one out the water. But if you can have Derrick Henry be Derrick Henry just in the backfield, and you can use McCaffrey, take down his actual inside carry numbers, use him in motion, use him in the slot because he's worked that beforehand, that's ridiculous. I would keep my eyes on San Francisco. Again, I'm not saying that this is 100% going to happen, but if there's one team that isn't getting a whole lot of traction, because Dallas has been rumored for Derrick Henry as well. If there's one play or one destination that I can see being a dark horse for Derrick Henry, to me, it is San Francisco. And I don't want to see that at all. I mean, I don't have to worry about it as a Bills fan because they're not going to the Super Bowl, so I'm not going to have to worry about it. I think they play them in the regular season this year, but I'm not 100% certain. But let me go ahead and go through the chat real quick because I went ahead and missed some. Chris says, could you imagine McCaffrey and Henry? Yeah, that would be stupid. That's a Madden cheat code. Yeah, like that's some stuff that you do in Madden, right? You try to push away a second or a third rounder. And look, they obviously gave up a lot to go get McCaffrey, and they don't quite have the trade assets that they needed beforehand. But because the trade market is so goofy, you have no idea what the value of these players really are. Because didn't the Titans sent Kevin Byard to Philadelphia for what, 5th rounder? Kevin Byard's an all-pro safety and what most people consider to be more valuable than a running back. So don't you, by the metrics that we do this, if we're just doing word association of this position's worth this and this position is worth less than that, and they're both all pros and perennial Pro Bowlers, I'm giving the other guy less as far as compensation is concerned. So if Derrick Henry can be had for a 5th rounder, which I don't think is going to be the case, I think it's still going to be more than that. But you've got to get in the game at least. You're making the phone calls, and you know that Tennessee is fielding them because they're just getting rid of everybody, it feels like. Let's see. The only player to have 2,000 yards in high school, college, and NFL. I didn't know that, Mr. Fisher. I did not know that, but that if you were to throw a stat at me and say, do you believe this? I'd be like, yeah, I don't even have to fact check it. I don't have to go to Wikipedia or nothing. I wholeheartedly believe that. And Tennessee GM is smoking crack, to be fair. There's got to be something in the water in the AFC South. Like, I know that they're in completely different states. But you got Jim Irsay in Indianapolis doing, saying, and conducting himself completely wild. Houston doing what they were doing with the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Tennessee blowing up everything now. And Jacksonville, what they were doing no more than 18 months ago with the whole Urban Meyer thing. Like, that whole division just needs to get relegated to college. I've made this argument beforehand. I know it's never going to happen. But this is the best way you could do that. Take the AFC South completely out of football, and whoever makes the college football playoff this year, you get to move up to the NFL. And then we'll keep it going. Again, I know it's not going to happen, so everybody can go ahead and just chill it out. I would like for it to happen, though. I think relegation should be a thing. But if you guys have topics to throw in the chat, I will go ahead and filibuster because I've got so many things I put into the scroll. I want to make sure I take care of these things one thing at a time. But once again, I want to give a plug to the Mac Truck podcast. We have been in conversation, and we believe that we are going to try to be on together 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. So kind of in that window before the Sunday night game. So we're hoping to do that. I want to give a plug to her since she reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be on. I thought it was a cool gesture. So remember, it's the Mac Truck podcast, available on Spotify, where they talk sports. And it's kind of like my show. They talk sports, other social issues and things like that. So next on my docket was Giannis gets a pass again. I'm so tired of this dude. If you follow my page long enough, you know that if there's one NBA superstar that gets away with so damn much hypocrisy, one is Damian Lillard, because now he's out, Mr. Loyalty, but also Giannis, because he's playing the exact same game. But also, I'm not sure if you guys saw this or not, but he completely just bowed out and said, it's Dame's team. What? You're a previous MVP. I believe he was a finals MVP. Won a championship. And this guy continues to think that he's the alpha. He continuously tells people how important winning is in Milwaukee, and then saying, well, if you don't help me out more, I'm going to leave. I'm pretty sure that every single athlete through any sport, when you vocalize that, we've crucified you. Now, I haven't done that because I believe in a positive work environment. I believe that you should like to be where you work. You usually get the best out of people. But sports is that one construct that we don't allow that to exist. It doesn't live there. Now, we sweep under the rug about Kobe. He wanted to leave, but didn't. And he's one of the guys that I've also had an issue with over the years of, and nobody wants to talk about it, obviously, because of the way that he passed his daughter and people that were involved. And I get that, but we also can't tell the entire story of Kobe Bryant if we don't want to talk about him saying, I don't want to take less money to be better. And I get it to a degree, because he's looking up at the banners and saying, you don't have them if you don't have me. So there's a level of arrogance and justification as well of, I'm not going to take less money. I wouldn't want a pay cut if I was as good at what I do that the market dictated it. But also, could you imagine how the legacy of Kobe would have been had they not passed? Because I remember when he retired and before he passed, he was never in this top 3, 4, 5 conversation ever of all time. It just wasn't there. It didn't exist. Then the tragedy happens, and then we cycle back. And had he just done the team-friendly move, he would have been there organically and not been there on the state of altruism more than anything else. But to get back to Giannis, it's one more thing that he's pulled the okie doke and moved the goalpost on, because if there's one thing that he does know how to do, it is play the American public and the American fans like a fiddle. He will be the hungry guy. I'll do anything to win when he doesn't have the ring or when he just won it. But then once he's got it in his back pocket, I've taken inventory and I got this Larry O.B. now. If I don't get my way, then I'm going to leave. And again, we ridicule players for doing that all the time. But apparently this guy gets a pass on not only just doing that to the organization, but on top of that, saying, yeah, this is Dame's team. He's been there for 3 Dame Dollar songs. That's how long he's been there. And you're already just willing to give it up. I don't know, man. I don't get... If you want to preach the loyalty, be the loyalty, dog. But if you also want to win, I understand, and there's layers to it. But he's flip-flopping to hit the narrative, and he always seems to know to hit the right notes at the right time, and he never gets publicly criticized. And I personally don't understand it. We'll go back to the chat. Which teams do you think have the edge in the World Series, or is it pretty even? To be completely honest, I have not watched a whole lot of baseball, so unfortunately, there's not going to be a lot of in-depth analysis I can give you. I know launch angle and exit velocity and spin rate. So whoever has the most of those is going to win the World Series. I don't have a whole lot of the knowledge when it comes to the D-backs and the Rangers. I'll tell you what, because I was born in Texas and I was a Rangers fan for a bit just because of Nolan Ryan, I'll go with the Rangers in 6. That's my expert analysis, and I'm really glad that I was able to figure something out. But hey, when you're not sure, sometimes. And let's see what else we got. That Lillard debit, though, hard AF. I'm not sure what Lillard debit is. Was that a song title? He was quoted saying it's Lillard's team now. To be fair, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though, is like he quoted, it's Lillard's team now, and it's like I don't know how you can go back and say that you're the guy, and then he just got there, and is willing to just completely push it off. Lillard has made more money than Curry in his career, which is, I guess, not super insane when you think about it. Oh, debut. Got it. Lillard's debut, though, was hard. Yeah. No, he played great game 1 and the second game. I just LOL, not debit, my bad. No, but it's all good. But when it comes to Portland, like I said, Giannis and Dame played everything perfectly with what the American sports fans want to hear. We want you to win it the right way, win it here, win it where you were drafted or where you started your career with. And just tell us that you love us. Because if you leave us, we can't trust anybody ever again. It's a sad love story, but that's what they do. But the thing that I've to be fair to Milwaukee, real quick, and we'll move on to the next subject. I've always told people, like, we as fans don't really understand exactly how difficult it is to run a team, to do it well, I guess I should say. I'll add the caveat of how difficult it is to run one well. Milwaukee has done a good enough job of creating pieces around Giannis and winning a championship within the last few years and during like the draft period and re-signing him. But what's going to make no sense to me is how the hell are you going to combat Giannis' salary with Dame's salary in a couple of years? Because in 2025, I believe, is when Dame's going to make like $67 million a year, and Giannis isn't going to be that much far behind him. I don't know what else you can do with that. Like if you draft really well, I guess, and develop really well, you could still be back in the mix. But Dame's going to be, 35 at that point in time? The only thing that matters when it comes to the final year is what Milwaukee gets back for Dame. Because he's going to get dealt. I'll call it right now. Damian Lillard on the last year of his deal is getting traded to somebody because no team wants to swallow that deal. And it's not like other leagues, right? Your expiring contract has value in the NBA. If you can get $67 million off your books and go get 3 or 4 middle-of-the-road players, you may have to get a third team involved. But the expiring contract is like, yeah, I can get that off my book ASAP. ASAP Rocky. And what Milwaukee's trying to do, like, now look, if they don't win a championship in this window, it's going to look terrible. Not necessarily for me, because I'm not a Bucks fan. I don't really care. But it's going to look that way, that you gave all of this away to go get Dame, and you came up empty-handed. I didn't feel like Lillard was going to win anything in Portland anyways. So his career, to me, I don't think he's going to win one in Milwaukee. So for me, his career is going to end up the exact same way. But Milwaukee, what you need to do, I guess, if this long play, or like if it really plays out the way that you think that it should, or the way that I think it should at least, it is going to be, hopefully you win one this year, if not next year. But once that 67 mil leaks in, you get him out of Dodge, and you're going to have to, and get as much back. And they're going to get a pretty good haul back for that. Let's see. Watching Scoot right now. Love his fire, and he's 19. It's, dude, the talent in the NBA, I don't want to say that it's overwhelming, but there are so many good NBA players right now, and they're all just crazy young, that the league, I feel like, will be in good hands, but you're going to have the continuation of, like, the real stud players continue to be stud players. And I think what I kind of noticed this the other day is the NBA has always been, we got to be physical, and overseas that's where you find the finesse guys, and you might find yourself a role player. And at this point in time, I think obviously the margin of error is bigger in the United States, because we get to see these kids. We're watching them from the time that they're like 14, 15 years old in these AAU camps. And there's so much coverage of them that we at least know they're going to be serviceable. The hype is going to be crazy no matter what. But if you whiff on them, if they're a top 5 pick, you could still get a good rotational player. Whereas overseas, when we don't see them as much, that's where you get ridiculed. Because I remember when Luka first got picked up as a top 3 player, top 4 player, and we're like, we don't know anything about this dude. And then when you dig in the archive, you go, oh yeah, he's been hooping really well since he's like 16. But what I noticed over the last 2 or 3 years is the NBA is getting its pieces from America, but the world is taking over as far as like the studs, the Embiids, the Lukas. It's too early for Wemby, so I don't want to do that. But him, Jokic, the guys who are continuously in like these top like 3 to 4, 5 in the MVP candidacy, the European dudes, like we got dudes here. We got dudes who can play, who can hoop, and on anybody on any given day can give you 25 at the park. But it feels like the real game changers are coming from overseas. And that might be a little bit more difficult for us to be able to kind of, one, accept, because we've already kind of, I guess, acknowledged the fact that the NBA globally, I don't want to say has caught up to us, because again, the talent pool is bigger and better here. But when we're looking at the real top tier guys, they aren't from here really. Or there's more from over there than what there used to be. So the most elite people have caught up to what the NBA talent pool is. But we just have a bigger kiddie pool. Let's see. You know what? It's already 8 o'clock my time, so it is basically bedtime for kiddo. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and chop it here, and we'll do part 2 tomorrow. And we'll go ahead, because we got through Victor, NFL trade rumors, and Giannis once again getting a pass from the public. Tomorrow we will pick up with Josh Allen and why I continue to boo him. How I was able to get my persuasions changed a little bit with the brotherly shove. How Kyle Shanahan is costing too many quarterbacks too much money, or has the potential to, and a whole lot more. So we'll pick up part 2 tomorrow. You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.